Everybody's getting sued over in the UK. Steam is currently looking at a $9 million lawsuit over in UK. And let's check over these articles and get into it. All right, so Steam faces a $900 million UK lawsuit over monopoly claims, and here's why Valve is being sued and why critics say the case might be unfair. Steam is the world's largest PC game digital distribution platform, is now at the center of a major legal battle in the UK. The platform is facing a $900 million lawsuit over alleged anti-competitive behavior. The case claims Valve has used Steam's massive market dominance to restrict competition. Not only that, but the lawsuit also claims the company is controlling pricing and imposing high commission fees that affect millions of gamers. Brought on behalf of roughly 14 million UK users, the lawsuit could set an important precedent of how powerful digital marketplaces are regulated in the future. Now, I am not a legal expert by any stretch of the imagination. However, I have found mostly that prices on Steam for games have been relatively on par with going to like video game stores. So I don't really see much of a difference in price personally. That's not to say that I've been to like a GameStop or an EB Games within the past year and bought a new game, because I, like everybody else, buy all of my games on Steam. So this, I don't know how accurate any of this is, given any kind of legalese explanation. But as far as pricing goes, they don't seem that different, if different at all, from like brick and mortar stores, at least here in the US. Now in the UK, I can't say for sure. And as far as the whole competition goes, that's more of a failure on their competition not being able to stand up a platform that's just as good as Steam. I mean, you don't climb into the ring with Ali because you think you know how to box, to quote a very old movie. The lawsuit via BBC claims that Valve has been using Steam's market dominance in digital game distribution to impose unfair business practices that limit competition. One major accusation is the use of platform parity rules, which allegedly prevent developers from offering their games at lower prices on rival stores. By doing this, the company keeps prices of the games artificially high and reduce consumer choice. I mean, it is a contract. They don't have to put their stuff on Steam. However, I understand the almost need to at this point because Steam is so big. So maybe that portion of that contract is a bit predatory, maybe? Like I said, not a lawyer. Can't say for sure. But if that is true, it does seem to be a bit mean. Not that they would be offering their games at a lower price anyway, because there was the whole Borderlands 4 game. When that came out, they basically said, we're going to price it at $70, and if you can't afford it, a real fan would figure out a way to. And that is not a direct quote, but that is summarizing what they said. Another concern coming from the lawsuit involves how in-game purchases and downloadable content work, especially how they're tied to Steam. This essentially means users who buy a base game on Steam must also use Steam's marketplace for add-ons, DLC, or expansions. And, I mean, yeah, because it's all tied together, so there's probably things in the code that means that the game is looking for DLC that came directly from the same source location, so that might be part of it. On top of this, Valve's standard 30% commission fee is described as excessive, with the claim that it directly leads to higher prices for players. If proven, these practices could be seen as anti-competitive behavior that harms both developers and consumers. That doesn't mean that they have to price their game so high. Case in point would be the game Silksong, which was like 10 or 15 bucks on Steam, and it was priced so low that even the video game pirates were telling people to just pay for the game because it was so cheap and yet so good. So if the games are good and developers stop trying to gouge their customers, which they were going to charge $70 for a game anyway regardless, if they weren't so greedy, it wouldn't be an issue. So this comes down to more of the greed of the devs rather than the greed of Steam, to be honest. And if being on Steam is so bad, they could always put out their own launcher like things Epic does, or Battle.net. They put out their own launchers, they put their games through there, unfair. Just if you don't like going through Steam, or you think Steam is being unfair, go through your favorite dev's launcher. Is Steam being singled out unfairly? By and large, I kind of think they are. But they're also kind of a victim of their own success, too. Despite the serious allegations, many believe the lawsuit is very unfair and seems to be singling out Valve. The company is following practices that are common across the gaming market. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, they're a victim of their own success. People who hate other people that are being successful, or other companies for being successful, they just try to tear down the ones that are being successful in order to make themselves feel better, since they can't be as successful. And I realize I just said successful a whole heck of a lot just now. Major platforms such as Xbox Store, PlayStation Store, Epic Games, and other digital stores not only don't allow you to buy add-ons from other stores, but they also charge similar 30% commission rates. Percentage might vary for different platforms. Yeah, and so if everything they're doing is on par with everybody else, then literally they're just being successful because they've created a holistic environment for you to get everything that you need to play your games, get your DLCs, and whatever else kind of content you might need for that game. My only problem is I don't like how greedy the developers are being, charging $70, $80 per game, which they were going to charge that much regardless of whichever cloud software environment they choose to sell their game on. Additionally, Steam has a tiered commission system that even reduces fees for high-performing games, which some developers see as reasonable. Supporters also argue that the platform provides extensive infrastructure, global distribution, security, and community features that justify its fees. That's true. Steam does offer all that stuff, and they dabble in awesome gaming hardware just for the love of the game, really. As far as I've seen, like the Steam Deck, they were doing successful without having to release that, yet they released it, and it made accessible a whole lot of other games that you could play while you're on the go. Other developers aren't necessarily doing that, or other environments aren't really doing that. You don't see Epic Launcher or Epic releasing a handheld. I've not really seen a Microsoft handheld. The only other, I've never seen a game developer release a handheld, even though they have their own environments for buying their own games. From this perspective, targeting Valve alone may overlook the broader industry standards and risks of creating uneven regulation that could disrupt the digital marketplace rather than improve competition. So here's a couple of tweets. One of them here is from Dexerto. They posted a 1-minute video. Let's take a listen to it. If I can get it up and running here. Doesn't seem like I can, but it's saying Steam is facing an $800 million lawsuit that could change gaming forever, and it's actually, $900 million, but that might be just an early value. And so she's saying it's illegal what Steam is doing, and let's see what he says. Claim 3 points. They're saying Steam is forcing out competition, forcing people to sign unfair contracts, but everybody else is doing the same thing as far as their contracts. But it got community noted, says the lawsuit's arguments are false. Steam does allow lower prices in other platforms. What they do not allow is lower prices for official Steam keys outside of the platform. The 30% fee is not only a standard, but only applies to sales inside Steam. Keys have a 0% fee. And here's another one from Britain is Broken for a whole bunch of reasons, but we'll not go into that. This is not the place for that. The UK government has just filed a $900 million lawsuit against Steam's parent company. The lawsuit claims Valve abused its Steam monopoly to impose unfair prices. Literally, the prices are exactly the same everywhere you go. They're not unfair. Anybody that uses Steam will say this is BS because Steam offers some of the best prices around. Exactly. The lawsuit wasn't filed by the UK government. Okay, fair. It was a private collective action filed by digital rights campaigner Vicky Shotbolt on behalf of UK consumers. Also, the claimed damages are 656 million British pounds. $900 million is just the dollar conversion. Either way, that's neither here nor there. The conversion is the conversion. UK lawsuit against Valve given the go-ahead. Steam owner facing up to 656 million British pounds in damages. Valve, creator of Steam, now face legal action in the UK. Could result into 656 million in damages. Not technically some new legal action. It's actually the same one that was started back in 2024. The founder and CEO of Parent Zone. They're noted in the legal documents as Vicky Shotbolt, class representative, limited PCR, backed by Milberg London LLP. Schulpelt actually set up a private limited company just for this with a steamuous.co.uk website. As of the latest details from documents submitted on January 26th, after a hearing in October 14th of 2025, legal action has now officially been given the go-ahead, as a tribunal have now been satisfied that there's enough there to be pursued. The unofficial summary of the new judgment prepared by the Registry of the Competition Appeal Tribunal, it notes the allegations against Valve. Real quick though, before we get into those, I want to check out this site. Okay, Steam compensation claims. Alright, so this is just like the Steam stats, really. And read more about the claim. Claim has been brought against Valve Corporation, the company that owns and operates Steam, on behalf of UK consumers. It alleges that Valve used anti-competitive tactics to block price competition. Literally, they do not. They're just a victim of their own success. Claim seeks compensation for those who we say have paid too much for PC games and add-on content. Claim seeks to address Valve's anti-competitive behavior and ensure that it does not operate Steam in a way that is detrimental to the consumer. Literally, everybody's treated the same across all platforms. We understand the importance of gaming and how widely it is enjoyed. This means it is important that gamers are treated fairly by large corporations who hold dominant positions. So this just seems like the British version of what happened to video games in the 90s here in the United States. Honestly, back in the 90s, video games were largely unregulated and just kind of thrown out there. And some parents got really upset that kids were able to buy just any game that they didn't approve of without parental consent, and then they came up with the whole ESRB thing as a result of all of it. And the ESRB does not necessarily rate things properly, to be honest. But Steam's prices appear to be the lowest. Steam can offer the lowest prices because of the anti-competitive price restrictions that Valve often imposes on game developers and producers. This means a publisher or developer would not be able to list the game on another platform as well as Steam unless the prices offered on Steam is the same or lower. That wasn't what we read in the other article. This applies to games on all other distribution stores, including online and physical stores, not just those distributed by Steam keys. This allows Valve to maintain the monopoly position it has for PC games, as there is not real incentive for gamers to go elsewhere where a game may be cheaper, which would then in turn enable those on other platforms to improve. It is also not possible to offer add-on content on other distribution platforms for cheaper or at an earlier time. This limits the ability of rivals to compete on price and enables Valve to charge the consumer higher prices in the absence of competition. The claim argues that the add-on content is a separate product and that through the price restrictions and inability to purchase add-on content from another distribution platform or the developer itself, Valve has illegally tied these products and limited consumer choice. Consumers must then purchase via Steam and pay its commission charge. Literally every other developer that has a similar operating procedure for delivering games online have the same thing. The Steam keys from the game must match where you're buying the downloadable content. So basically, it's like with cell phones, software on there, you can't buy it or get it from the Google store and then expect to be able to update it in the Samsung store. You can't do both. If you download it from one spot, you have to update it from that same place you got it from. It's the same thing with the DLC in the games that you buy based on where you bought it through. In the UK, dominant companies are not allowed to charge excessive prices. The claim argues that Valve's commission rate of up to 30% is excessive given competitors' lower commission rates, the way the platform operates for the consumer, and the high level of profit that Valve is making absent a viable competitor, which its behavior directly restricts, as developers are not permitted to list games at a lower price on competing platforms. This is unfair. Commission charge is paid for by the consumer. But the prices are exactly the same whether you buy it online or in person or via another third-party location, if not from the software developer directly. You're going to pay the same price regardless of where you buy it. And I would actually argue that if the game is $70 on Steam, it would make more sense for it it to be more expensive if you buy like a hard copy of the game. For example, like Nintendo games. You can buy the cloud version and get it, ported directly into your machine, or you can go to someplace like GameStop and buy a physical copy. The prices are often the same, if not cheaper, to buy it the hard copy, even though there's more involved in producing the hard copy version. So this whole thing kind of makes no sense and seems a bit ridiculous to me. But like I said, I know nothing about legalese, so on the surface, as a gamer, I'm going to say that Steam is in the clear here and the UK is just kind of got its stick up its butt. But back to the allegations, imposing platform party obligations, or PPOs, that prohibit publishers from selling products through other distribution channels on better terms than the same products are available on Steam. The PCR alleges that the PPOs are likely to cause and have in fact caused restrictions of competition, imposing anti-steering provisions to the effect that if a publisher wants consumers playing its games distributed on Steam to be able to make in-game purchases, all such purchases must be made using the Steam application. That is not true at all. Actually, there are games like Elder Scrolls Online where you can literally buy little cosmetics and stuff in the game without having to purchase them on Steam application programming interface, and therefore Valve's payment processing service. As a result, the payments are subject to Valve's commission charges. Such anti-steering provisions leverage Valve's dominant position in the game market, so as to enable it to secure a larger share of the add-on content markets by preventing or restricting the ability of other distribution channels to supply, including self-supply, add-on content for games distributed on Steam, imposing excessive commission charges which amount to an unfair price, which is then passed on to consumers. They also note that Valve directly opposed it on these specific grounds. PCR had not put forward an adequate methodology for determining Valve's effective commission charge, or as Valve referred to it, the effective revenue share, as the PCR had failed to consider the effects of Steam keys, the effective commission charge issue, which they don't have a percentage on, the keys. The PCR had not put forward an adequate empirical method for determining the effect of the alleged PPOs, which related to a wider abuse allegation. PCR's proposed class definition was inadequate as there was no workable methodology whereby proposed class members, including a high proportion of minors, can identify themselves as being class members. In the full judgment page, it notes this is being done on behalf of some 14 million UK-based consumers with aggregate damages that are provisionally estimated at up to £656 million. This is all on an opt-out basis rather than an opt-in, meaning anyone this may have affected in the UK is automatically included. On the note of minors above, this is something Valve argued about, as there wouldn't be enough evidence from minors, partly due to Valve taking so little info when you create a Steam account, and it needed to take into account payment cards being used across different accounts, like parents using their card on a child's account. So who is actually included in it? In the class definition was amended to all persons who, during the class period, made one or more payments to purchase games and or add-on content for games, including subscription payments for PC games and or add-on content. Persons are end consumers and do not include resellers or other non-retail consumers. Persons include, in particular, people who purchase PC games and or add-on content for use by themselves or by people they know, such as friends or family members. Purchasers include, for the avoidance of doubt, A, where the payment was taken from, a bank or credit card at the time of purchase, whether through the submission of card details or the use of digital wallet technology such as Apple or Google Pay or PayPal. The person whose account the money was taken from, where the payment was made with preloaded funds on a user account, for example like a Steam wallet or an Epic wallet. The user account, but you can't necessarily use an Epic wallet on Steam, I don't think. I'm not sure, I've never used it, so I don't know. The user account holder, and C, where the payment was made using a monetary gift card or voucher. The person who made the payment using that card or voucher. So it has been steered more directly to those who actually paid and not the account holder. We've seen this before, as there's a lawsuit also currently in progress in the USA against Valve on similar grounds back in 2024. The lawsuit in USA was granted class action status, but is still ongoing. They've reached out to Valve for a comment and will update if Valve offers a statement. Valve, there's little reason for consumers to buy DLC on other platforms for their own Steam copies, as Valve is quite generous with discounts. That's true. Unlike other platforms, and users can find DLC options on markets likely loaded, formerly known as CD keys. Perhaps the most perplexing claim of all is that the one that states Valve is essentially ripping off gamers by imposing excessive commission charges, which amount to an unfair price when passed on to consumers. It's a claim that most gamers will likely deny, since Valve is very much known for its generosity with price drops and its consumer-friendly nature. Yet they do offer discounts on a whole lot of stuff all the time. Like, there's always a sale going on games on Steam, anywhere between 20%, 10 to 20%, all the way up to 75%, depending on the popularity of the game and or the age of it as well. Steam is one of the only storefronts that has a flexible refund policy, allowing players up to 2 hours of playtime to decide whether a product is no longer wanted, and I've personally received refunds in cases of playtime over 2 hours. While we can only speculate whether these claims are legitimate, it's hard to reason with the claim of unfair pricing that's passed on to consumers, and users have already come to Valve's defense on Reddit. I wish I had remembered Steam's refund policy when I was playing that horrible Tiny Tina's Borderlands adventure game. That was such a terrible game, I wish I had returned it. But I forgot about the refund policy and never did. And so the overall analysis from this article is Valve is being unfairly targeted. Valve's Steam storefront is widely preferred for PC gaming, often seen as the better choice over platforms like Epic Games, Battle.net, GOG, or the Ubisoft store. Oh, we covered Ubisoft in a past video. We are not jumping down that rabbit hole again. That's exactly why this lawsuit feels like it's unwarranted, particularly when the allegations don't sound plausible. The likes of Sony and Nintendo have their console storefronts locked down with only occasional discounts on their games. This is mostly evident with Microsoft's Blizzard and its Battle.net launcher, with its Call of Duty games still at full price years after their launches. And honestly, Microsoft is not the worst. I dare say Nintendo is probably the worst at this entirely. They have games on their specific storefront that are nigh on a decade old that they're still selling for brand new prices. These are genuine issues for consumers, as these games can't be purchased via cheaper alternatives, locking users into paying high prices unless there's a sale, unlike Steam, where standard game prices for older titles usually fall. And honestly, they fall fast if the game is not popular. The claims that Valve is restricting competition fall flat when you realize the same thing can be said about platforms like Sony and Epic that make third-party games timed exclusives, which, by the same metric, lock players into purchasing and playing on that specific platform. This person has always felt that Valve has pushed for consumer-first approach via its CEO Gabe Newell, and long may that continue. I kind of agree, actually, or not kind of, I completely agree that it seems like Steam is being targeted very unfairly when you consider the nature that other platforms are locking their storefronts and keeping old games priced at new for a very long time. Like I said, Nintendo is probably the worst of that, of all of them. So I guess that covers all of that. I thought there would be more to it. Anyway, I appreciate y'all coming and hanging out and checking out the story. Later. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.